Welcome to The Conscious Creative from MuseWorks Audio. The Conscious Creative is a podcast featuring interviews with artists who are doing transformational work in their craft and in their communities. Join us as we discuss different artistic philosophies, give you brand new tools to bring back to your creative spaces, and build a community of artists dedicated to deepening their relationship with their craft. I'm your host, Mike Irish. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to another episode of The Conscious Creative. I'm your host, Mike Irish, and today we have Jayme McDonald, aka MD Boomsday, aka CHATTERLESS, and we spoke about his past in the music scene in Vancouver, his podcast and producing for artists, as well as his latest solo effort, CHATTERLESS. We also spoke about the various skills he's required and the opportunities that having a vast skill set has offered him. Skills like understanding music theory, production, mixing, emceeing, and even consulting. He comes from a musical family, and we spoke about what effect that has on him as an artist and as someone in the music industry. And he also gives some really incredible advice for producers who are seeking placements in ads and in movies, which he has had and he has done in his career. So he offered some advice in that, and I think it's really useful advice if you're a producer who wants to understand that side of the game a little bit. I really enjoyed this chat with Jayme. He's been in the music industry for a really long time, so if you are someone who's trying to break into the music industry and make a living, this is a great episode for you. So tune in. I hope you enjoy it. Now I just have one announcement before we get into the episode. I'm building a PDF series based on the book Music Marketing for the DIY Musician by Bobby Borg. The PDF series will be based on each chapter in the book, and it starts with the basics of understanding what your goals are as a musician and building upon that so that you have not only a clear vision but a plan of how to get there as well. Again, the title of the book is Music Marketing for the DIY Musician, and if you feel like that title is relevant to you, which I feel like it is for a lot of my audience, I really recommend you jumping on this. It's totally free of charge. I just want to create a community of artists who are building with a purpose and with a focus. So if you're interested, click the link in the description to sign up and get the PDF sent directly to you. I hope that it's valuable to you. I've got some good feedback on it already. So if you choose to join, welcome aboard. And other than that, enjoy the episode with Jayme McDonald. Welcome, Jayme McDonald, aka MD, aka CHATTERLESS, to The Conscious Creative. I appreciate you taking the time to have this chat and talk about your history and the way you approach things and what you got going on in the future, man.
Thank you very much for having me. This is like probably one of the most anticipated moments I've had in a while, because like there's been so much like cool build up to this one. Like, you're such a classy guy. I really appreciate it. And it's just you, me, and Jack today, my friend.
Yeah.
We're hanging out.
I'm stoked. I mean, we've run in the same circles for a while in Vancouver, so it's cool to chop it up with you and hear everything. So I guess where I wanted to start off is, I know you've been producing for the hip hop, like lots of hip hop acts in Vancouver and outside of Vancouver, for Crooked Eye and for Chino XL and for Mercules and a bunch of local acts. And you started doing some solo instrumental music. And I was wondering why'd you make that change? What's the catalyst for that?
Well, the first change that I made was I came from a performance background where I was rapping. I was hippity hopping all over the place. And I was performing under the name MD. Originally I was Mickey D. That was like a long time ago. That's like hieroglyphics on the wall. But if you like look up MD, and I linked up with an art collective out here called the Boomsday Alliance. So I'm MD of the Boomsday Alliance, and we're just like a bunch of video game nerds that like to make art, and it's kind of fun that way. And we would make space sci-fi sagas where, you know, we don't release songs, we release episodes, and we don't release albums, we release seasons. It was all intricately weaved into a story, and it was it was just like this long epic. And I was doing that, and then I was releasing music like that until about 2015, and I was through my second label deal at the time with Amp Records, and I just realized that, like, you know, Amp Records was folding at the end of the year, and they had been around for a while. So I realized, okay, I'm still under contract. What can I do for the next year that isn't production? Because I was kind of caught in no man's land for a little bit there. And I realized that, well, I can do consulting, and I can do like other types of performance for myself. And I wanted the new challenge. So for like 3 years, I like sat on this idea. And then one day I realized, I was like, you know what? I'm going to just attack this in a particular manner that I've always done, which is talk my way into it before I actually do it. I went on a live stream. I was guest hosting the Holy Sock Gang Instagram for the release of Nardwar's Wardrobe. And I was like, yeah, I might release a Christmas album someday. Maybe I'll just play some keys, you know, something like that. And then the feedback on that, with so many responses, were like, yeah, do that. And I was like, okay. And I was sitting there like at 3-4 a.m. in the morning. I was like, what's the name of this? And I was like, well, what's something I've been told my whole life that I've never done, that like I've never heeded the advice? And it's like, well, probably to talk less. And I was like, talk, chat, chatter less. Yeah, I should chatter less. So that's where the instrumental vibe comes from. And from there, it's evolved from piano instrumental into lo-fi and synthwave and retro wave. And it's growing every day. I'm seeing new numbers and new countries and cities I've never even could possibly imagine every day. I'm super humbled by it, like every minute. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. The latest what's the latest song you put out?
Long Shadows on the
Long
Sand.
Shadows. Yeah. That's incredible. Really incredible.
Thanks,
work,
man. Oh, yeah. Thanks, dude. That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. That song, I wanted to make something where I wanted to be mentally, in terms of mental health. You know, a lot of times the hardest, like sometimes like the melancholy stuff, the really sad stuff comes out of like a happy place. And sometimes the really happy stuff comes out of a dark place. And that was one of those moments where I was like, not really in a space where I should be. And I was working on myself, and I just was like, okay, this is where I want to be. And so that, and like the first single, Stay With Me, that's literally what those are. Those are like, that's where I want to be mentally. When I hear it, it's supposed to remind me that I'm back there, you know?
Yeah.
Like the sun hitting your face or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I love the name Chatterless as well. It's just such a great name for an instrumental project. It's just like, it's kind of just subtly funny once you make that connection and start listening to the music. It's like, oh yeah, there's no it's chatterless.
Yeah. It's like, I like it. You know, I've ran into there's another guy in the scene. His name's Speechless, and he's a really nice dude. We've DM'd a bunch of times and then chatted it up, but like, you'd think that there'd be some like, no, I'm the less, and it's like, no, he's just chill. We're like, hey man, what's up? I'm like, yeah, we're like name bros, like name cousins or something. Yeah, I like it, just super chill, you know.
Yeah. You said that you do some consulting as well.
Yeah, I feel like I do that a lot. I feel like every so often I'll get a message or a phone call from someone, and they'll say, hey, I need assistance with this, like more of like a project management type role, where, you know, they might have a lot of elements that need to be combined and sorted out. That's really where I'm an effective leader in that sense. To supplement production income, over the years, I've taken executive assistant jobs, and like, you know, that role is predominantly governed by female genders. That's like literally that's how it is. So when I show up with a unisex name like Jayme, they don't expect it to be me to begin with. But then like I'm like, here, okay, so I have to work like twice as hard just to prove to them I'm not like, in and out, fly by night. So I've learned a lot over the years, and it's very similar to music. And that's actually how I pitch myself for those roles, is that I say, hey, executive assistant is like very, very similar to music, because you're managing personalities, you're working within budgets. Usually the budgets are much bigger, and you have to work very hard all the time and be very detail oriented. That's production in a nutshell right there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. Really cool. Really cool. So, sorry, do you do that within the music industry or?
Yeah, predominantly. So I own a company called Jack and Allen Consulting. I named it after my my paternal and my maternal grandfathers, respectively. So Jack Backman and Alan McDonald. Jack and Allen Consulting is me, just me, and it's where I run all my business through.
Oh, cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Kind of took a little bit of a tangent there that I wasn't expecting, but no, I was really just interested in. I think it's really fascinating just hearing all the different ways that people have, discovered to use their expertise to make money within the music industry. I mean, you have to be creative, and that's just another route that people can go if they want to, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's an unfortunate reality that one income stream won't do it anymore, and that if you're versatile, you can make your presence known in a larger capacity to a larger group of people. One thing I was taught when I was in school, because I went to music school back in 2005. One of the things I remember the most was a lot of people like the music, and a lot of people do the music. Some people do the business, but not a lot of people do the music and the business. And the people that do both are the people that succeed. And man, I hold on to that. I hang my hat on that so hard. I think about that all the time. And that's what it is. It's like, if you're not consistent, you should at least be known for trying to be consistent. That type of level where you're like, okay, I want to work at this all the time. I want to be on top of things. There's so many, I have stories for days of really talented, really, really dope artists that like could easily be doing whatever they wanted creatively right now, that just for whatever reason get in their own way.
I know, man.
And
yeah, I know. And I'm just learning about how important the business side of things is. But and I think it gets a bad rap, to be honest. Like it's super fascinating once you start learning more about it and start understanding it more. I feel like part of people's fear of it is like the fear of the unknown. And then once you start to get a grasp on some of the ideas, like marketing is actually pretty cool. It's super artistic and super creative once you get into it,
Yeah. Like once you like, it's not cool when you're like doing what everyone else is doing. It is cool when it reflects you and your brand. And that's the hard part. Like people can't get their head around it. It's like, well, I put out the YouTube link, so everyone's going to watch it. It's like, that's not enough. You gotta, why am I watching it? What's the reason behind it? Do I know you? Do we engage? Did you just put this up and hope that we'll be friends later? It's like, that's probably not going to work. We have to have an existing rapport, and then hopefully that builds into something more, like that's the way I approach things. And I feel like you just have to be genuine. Like, I know it sounds super obvious, but like, just be genuine. Like if you're feeling a certain way, put that out there. If you're feeling like you want to be creatively reflected in a certain manner, do that. Don't do what other people are doing. Do you. You're the only instrument. You're one of one. There's no other Michael Irish out there. There's no other MD. There's no other, there's no other version of that. You're completely, you're cut. It's sacrosanct. You need to understand like how important it is in order to move ahead. That's yeah, I wish I could hammer that into some artist's head, man. I really do.
Yeah, I feel you. So you said you went to school for music?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I went to Pacific Audio Visual Institute, also known as PAVI. And PAVI was founded, I think, in 2000 and early. And I attended from '05 to '06. It was like a 12-month course. They just crammed like 4 years into 12 months. And yeah, I wish they would have just given me excuse me. I wish they would have just given me like a contact list for the amount of money that it cost. And they would have just been like, hey, here are some people that will always pick up the phone. Here are some people that will always respond to you. Cause like that's worth so much more than a lot of the stuff in the course at the time. I can't speak for what it was afterwards, but like at the time, there was some really good teachers there and there were some really bad teachers there. Like I had an audio engineering math course that we took where we had 3 different teachers over the course of 3 months. And there was like, yeah, it's chaos, and it's like college. So add that into the mix. So it's whatever. But I went to that school folded a few years ago. So it doesn't even exist anymore. But I remember being the first day of school and I remember them saying, this school is a reflection of the music industry now and is very new and avant-garde and may not even exist in a few years. And then it true to life, it didn't exist in a few years. But it was new. Like they're like, yeah, we never used to teach music. You used to just have to like intern and learn it the hard way. And yeah, I would learn stories like, oh, this is how you realign a tape head machine. And they talk about it and it's like, wow, this is like really super difficult. And like the precision you need to do this is like intense. And they tell stories about like, yeah, some assistant engineer came in, realigned the tape heads, accidentally hit reverse. And so all the when he played it back, it just deleted everything that was being played. And so they had like a whole week's worth of takes gone. And so he just picked up his jacket and left. Just never came back. Like I remember them telling us stories like that. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is the music industry. I get it.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. Oh man. That gives me anxiety just thinking about that situation.
Yeah, especially if you imagine it like it's like the Rolling Stones or something like that. It's like, yeah, you're responsible for like Jumping Jack Flash Part 2 never came out or something.
Oh. So you learned like audio production, audio engineering at school? Did you learn like business stuff as well?
Well, when I was in school, I remember one specific moment that kind of sticks out to me, which is, I was in the audio engineering program, and at the time, it's a little bit different now, but like at the time, you could go into engineering purely as an engineer if you wanted. Like there was not as much overlap as there is now with producers who do like a lot of it themselves. So at the time, there was like an informal survey in the class where it's like, okay, everyone who's in the engineering program, put your hand up if you want to be an engineer. And like everyone put their hands up, but me, because I was there as a performer. I just wanted to know what was going on the other side of the glass most of the time. I didn't want to have like a lack of understanding. I wanted to I wanted to be fully fluent in what was happening. And then they're like, okay, who here wants to eventually be a producer? And like everyone put their hands up and I didn't. And so after the class, the teacher pulled me aside and was like, so why are you here? And I told him everything I just said to you. And he was like, you should really think about it. You should really think about what you want to do, with the knowledge you're getting here, because I think you'll enjoy it. Now, to tell you the truth, in my cohort of all the grads and everyone that came out of the year I was in, I think I am one of 2 people out of 90 something people that are in my cohort. And like, imagine they're doing 90 people every 3 months. So they're putting out these just churning people out. So I'm like one of two people that's producing. So I have, I've had like a kind of a weird road in order to get where I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And you, are you classically trained in piano as well, or?
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
That's also a backward story.
Okay.
I have an uncle who's not really my uncle. He's my second cousin. His name is Arnold Terzitz, and he's a pretty popular, famous composer in his own right. He actually he taught in Germany, is what he did. So he would come home from Germany on Christmas, like at Christmas time, and say like, "Do you want to learn the left hand to a song?" So I'd be like, "Okay." So he'd be like, I don't know if you can hear that, but so I'd learn that, and he'd be like, "Okay." And then he'd come home at Easter and he'd be like, "Do you want to learn the rest?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." And he'd be like, so I'd be learning these like toccatas and fugues, but I'm just learning them like rote. Like I don't know anything about theory. I just know like move your finger here, move your finger there. Like I don't know anything about it. But I have an ear, and I'm like starting to pick up like, oh, this is a harmony to this. And then he's like, okay. So then he started teaching me, he's like preludes and stuff like, okay. So anyway, so we'd start learning. And then I realized at one point I was like, okay, I know like these are like difficult pieces for like some pianists, but I don't know anything about this. So I lived in a small town, and my grade 5 teacher was also my grade 6 teacher, and he happened to be like one of the local piano teachers. So I had like a pretty good bond with this guy. His name was Mr. Sarant, and Brian Sarant. I still call him Mr. Sarant. That's hilarious. Mr. Sarant taught me music theory and chord structure. So like just like Farmer in the Dell, Little Brown Jug, In the Garden, all these like folksy kind of songs. And then eventually he came in one day and was like, "What do you want to learn?" And I was like, Next Generation, Star Trek. And he's like, "Okay." And then there would be this like, we're running out of material for each other. Like he'd get to the point like, "Okay, I've taught you like Hogan's Heroes. I've taught you like we're reaching deep into the theme songs, Yeah. And so I promised my grandmother that I'd try some Royal Conservatory. And honestly, I was at the age like I'm a teenager, and I wasn't necessarily like as focused on music, like that type of music. Like I was focused on rhyming more than I was focused on piano at the time. And I literally was just like, okay, I'll try it out. But they make you start like right from the bottom. Like, so I was like grade 1 Royal Conservatory, like, and that like crushed me a little bit, because there's like little kids in my class, like, like 5-year-olds that are, doing these pieces. And I'm trying to explain to them, I'm like, but I know. And they're like, no, it doesn't matter. So I ended up challenging some of the theory, getting ahead that way, and then saying like, this isn't for me, backing out of it. And pretty much since I was, I'd say 19, 20 again, I've been playing like every day. So back to it. Yeah. So I'm self-taught after that. So I went through completely different weird thing. Like most people go through like a traditional Royal Conservatory or something, learn chord structure, work their way up to big pieces, things like that. Like I don't know. I'm silly that way. I use my giant ears to lead the way. It's the ear, not the gear,
So it came to you like pretty naturally then? Like when you said your uncle was teaching you, you said you were hearing harmonies fairly early on. And
yeah, I mean, I have difficulty talking about that because I don't like coming across like that was easy or something. Like I it's it takes a tremendous amount of work and concentration to do it and have it done properly. But at the same time, I would be misrepresenting it if I didn't say that, like, yes, I can often put together a piece if I can hear it first, and then I can put it to, like, now, like I'm almost at the point where I can, like, I do my piano live streams and I get requests from listeners and I can almost do them on the spot. I'm not all the way there yet, but like I'm pretty close. I've been working on it for the last year, so very hard to do that. But yeah, like it's difficult, but I definitely have a natural inclination to it, is what I think the best way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that learning, like, how much does having that classical, like, understanding of theory affect your production when you're doing like lo-fi instrumentals, or your instrumental work in general? Do you think that it's like a leg up, like a serious leg up for yourself, or does it come into play as much?
Yeah, I think all of my production benefits from it, but like specifically, I'd say my score work obviously is probably the most evident, where I was fortunate enough to score this documentary last year called Dosed, and I was blessed enough to have it like win a bunch of awards, and it was awesome to be attached to a project like that. That's super cool. But there were moments where I was having to compose on the spot in front of the co-directors, and like, talk about diamond pressure, like yeah. And when you're the third man in the room, and you have to be the sometimes the deciding vote on something, sometimes it comes down to what you're playing and how you're going to play it. So yeah, I definitely look back on my teaching as like, I'm so glad I learned that. I'm so glad I paid attention. So glad I kept with it and stuck with it. Like, definitely, when you said leg up, I'd say maybe just a wider stance rather than a leg up. It just gives me more of a range of motion. I think that's a better way to put it.
Yeah. I could tell with your latest release, just, I feel like the complexity of the arrangement, I feel like is just, it just has a little bit more depth, I felt like, than the average like lo-fi instrumental that you hear. Yeah,
I appreciate that. I hear what you hear when we throw on like chill mixes 24/7 on YouTube or whatever, like the writing girl or whatever. Like, I hear the same thing you're hearing, and like a lot of it is like sampling the same like 5 songs or something like that. Like, the amount of work I put into something to make it sound sampled is like a whole other just podcast in itself. But like I work really hard to come across as like, this is well thought out, this is original, this is, I'm so varied in what I do that I think that's my signature. Like, I think that, like, instead of having like, oh, this sounds exactly like him, it's like, well, did you know he also did this? Like, he did this. That's kind of like my goal, I think, artistically. That's what I want to do. And just, can I just say though, like, I appreciate you saying that about the complexity of like the melodies and things like that, because if I read to you like any of the rejection letters I get from curators, from playlists and stuff, like I'm very, very fortunate that like I do get accepted to like quite a few. So I'm not like I'm not like, I don't have a cup in my hand with pencils and an eye patch. I'm not like in a tough spot. Okay. But like, at the same time, I get these rejection emails and they're like, this was very repetitive and the melodies were not very good. Sorry, try again. Stuff like that. And I'm like, okay. And then I hear something from you and I'm like, well, I trust your ear a lot more than I trust rando curator 500,
Yeah.
So that's, I find that fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, you get these emails back from some people, and you got to remember that you don't know who is on the other end of that email. Like, it could just it could be anybody, right?
Totally be spam. Totally let somebody lets their kid write it. I have no idea, right? Like, you have no idea.
Yeah.
Did they even listen? That's my favorite part. I'm like, did you even listen? Yeah. So I'm cool though. I'm fine. I'm good with
it. So you kind of spoke a little bit about this, and I'd love to hear a bit more about you. Obviously, you said your uncle taught you a little bit of piano, and I believe you come from a family pretty embedded in the music industry, and I'd love to hear about how that has affected your trajectory and the way you look at things, and also if there's any influences that you felt really sort of set you in the right direction early on.
Yeah, okay, for sure. So I have 4 siblings, 5 counting me, right? So my sister's not involved, but I have 3 brothers that are. So there's the 4 brothers, we all are. We're all in different genres of music too. So it's not like we're stepping on any toes or anything like that. Not that that would be a problem, but the trajectory it's taken is that, you know, in any point in time, excuse me, we're talking about a pre-COVIDian era, but in any point in time, one of us is in some phase of like recording, touring, or performing in some aspect. Like there's something going on. So there's always something like I remember like a weird moment. I think it was in Montreal where like I had 2 of my brothers cross paths on different tours in the same city, you know, like that kind of like, and I remember being like, this is like, you know, it's not like, it's not your average Thanksgiving is what I'm trying to get across here. So like, I feel very like humbled by it that like, you know, look at my brothers are very talented. They're super good guys. Like they're decent people. Like we're all raised right. No one fucks anyone over. Like we're decent people in the industry. And I think that's why people like to work with us. And I think if you examine that a little bit further into trajectory, it's like I was influenced heavily by my older brother. So because I'm kind of the middle in the birth order. There's like my older sister, my older brother, then me, and then I have 2 younger brothers. And my older brother was playing in bands. Like he's 7 years older than me. So while I was 11, he was 18. So he was like playing in punk bands, and I was like being exposed to that very early on. So I was immediately like, I like that. I love it. You know, I want to jump up there and do it. And so that's what I did. And I had like kind of probably I've never really spoken about this, but probably had maybe some of the same effect on my younger brothers a little bit, you know, but I'm sure they looked to my older brother first because he was the first one to do it like that. You know, there's been awards given and, you know, TV show placements and tours, like I mentioned before. And so like there's varying degrees of success, but like overall, I think a lot of us are very comfortable with like how we've been working so far, and the future's bright. I think after vaccines are out and everyone's feeling much better, that, you know, it's only going to get bigger and better. And I'm really excited for what comes up next.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool, man. I feel like, you know, if you don't come, I feel like just being in that sort of family and being able to look directly like around you and seeing the fruits of someone's labor and seeing someone's success in the music industry must be a pretty big comfort, because so many of us know absolutely nobody in the music industry who's successful, you know?
Yeah. And like, you know, to put an emphasis on that, I moved out to Vancouver to go to school, like we mentioned earlier, but I happened to take a giant leap of faith on a 5-bedroom lease out here. And I ended up moving like some of my brothers out here, and the other rooms I filled with artists I was going to produce. So I had like a mill, almost like an artist mill. Yeah. And we were like producing like crazy. We had a rehearsal floor. We had just every room was kind of a production suite. It was happening. It was the Rupert House. That's what we called it. And it led to so many things, and so many connections were made. So many people still, it's like, I know people that made lifelong friendships from that house that like maybe I don't even talk to as much anymore. So I have I have a lot of a lot of feelings when it comes to like moving out here. Well, because I moved out here with like nothing. Like it's, you know, it's funny because like when I say nothing, I mean like I just had no context. I had no idea. I was a small town kid. I didn't know, you know, small time values, big time city. Like I had no understanding of a lot of things. I was super naive too. Like I got caught up in some dumb stuff when I first moved out here, and I immediately distanced myself from it. Like that kind of stuff. Like I just thought I was doing the right thing. And you know, my feelings towards the whole moving out here is like I have this album coming out March 26th called Nobody from Nowhere with Nothing. And like it's not like like it's not like a, you know, it's not autobiographical, but like at the same time it is very much from a real place. And it's supposed to be playing more into the chatterless, you know, mystique or whatever you want to call it. But if you can like just kind of suspend your belief for a moment and just get into it, you'd realize that like, okay, there's very relatable points in this, because I think anyone who starts like a new job or like a new school or like has to move somewhere or like anything, you go to a new gym, like you're nobody from nowhere with nothing. You have to like start off from scratch. How do you feel about that? How are you gonna attack it? Are you gonna feed the wrong wolf, you know, the courage wolf or the bad wolf? So that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I moved to Vancouver under similar circumstances. I didn't really know anybody either, so I'm super familiar with that feeling.
You're a good guy though. Easily made your way in the world, you know?
Yeah, I got there in the end. There's a few bumps at the beginning though. Yeah.
See? Yeah, I recognize that. Yeah. You just said pure-hearted people often find themselves in situations like that. You're just like, oh, sure, you could hold my wallet. Are there any big moments that you can think of back to that place, the Rupert House? Because that just sounds like such a cool time. I would love to hear a story or something from that. I did a project with Jayme, who's now Mizzy Miz, and Dem Rose Boys Miz, who's you know, one of my, he's a brother to me. We used to hate each other in high school. We're both from the same hometown in Ontario, and we used to hate each other. We wrote diss records to each other. It was like,
no way.
Yeah, we were deep in the beef. And then his best friend was my future girlfriend at the time, and she sat us down and made us squash it. And like we outlasted the you know, the divorce, so to speak. So we were at a point where I called him one day from the Rupert House, and I was like, hey, I have a room opening up, pack your bags. And he was just like, all right. And he showed up. He literally showed up, and I handed him a bottle of Jack, and I was like, this is yours, this is mine. And then we played, I think, the same Boomsday Alliance song like 20 times in a row. And I was like, all right, I think we're ready. And then we shaved each other's heads. And I was like, okay, what do you want to do? And he's like, I feel like we need to do something like different. We kept talking about different. And it kind of came to us. We're like, okay, I think what we're going to do is I'm going to rescore the film Fight Club, and you're going to take a principal character role in it. And he's like, yeah, that's dope. And then we were like, okay, this was like when, I don't know if you remember, like when download cards started becoming a thing with Bandcamp and shit like that. Like we were putting out songs through Bandcamp, and we were like, okay, so we'll print off these business cards basically with the download stamp on it, so you can just put the UPC in, and we'll find a soap company that'll print the Fight Club logo on soap, and then we'll attach it to it. And so we did that. And we would mob around and just hand out soap with Fight Club on it, and we'd be like, for promo use only, for promo, like just screaming for promo, please don't sue us. Like, and we would just hand these out all the time. And you can still check out this project. It's called Fight Club Project Mayhem. It's on Bandcamp, and it's myself and Miz from Dem Rose Boys. And yeah, I did all the production and he did all the vocals. And
Cool.
we're in a spot now where we look back on that and it's like, that feels like someone else's life, like he's like, I'm married now, he's engaged, and we're like different people completely, but we're still super tight. But we listen back on that and that's like a moment where I'm like, damn, we had like a frat house going basically for a little bit without the douchebaggery. Essentially, we had like a frat thing going. It was kind of cool, like more like a brotherhood. I hate the word frat. More like a brotherhood of artists that link creatively.
Yeah. God, that must have been so much fun.
I wish you were there, man. That would have been. Imagine us trading stories right now on that. That'd be dope.
So move to switch lanes a little bit.
Sure.
I know that you've had some placements in short films, commercials, and stuff like that. And that's a part of the game that I have no clue about, but I think is really overlooked by a lot of producers. And do you have any advice for young producers if they're looking to break into that side of the game?
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay. First thing, absolutely. Yeah. Get the fuck away from samples. Stop using samples. You can use drum samples. You can use, impacts and FX and all that. So that's fine. But I'm talking about like sampling like melodies. Do not do that, because what happens is your publishing is eaten up completely by the person who owns that. So whatever you do, first of all, it's a lottery ticket to get the placement. So once you get the placement, you're already winning. But if you have to give up the lion's share of that to someone who did none of the work and you just sampled them, so like now they're sitting back and cashing a check on you, like that's the first thing I would say. So like, first of all, make it worth your while, because if you don't do that, you're going to be in rough shape. The next thing I'd say is always make sure you're getting what you're worth. Now that might seem like pretty obvious, but what'll happen is you're going to get deals that are pushed in front of you that seem like they're the only one on the table, so you have to take it. It's like, I would recommend, and this is with experience, that you always counter. You always counter. You always say like, look, this is great. Can we do this, but this as well? Or can we do this, but with this on the back end? Can we do this with percentage splits this way? Can we have some kind of agreement where this works out? And if they come back to you with like boilerplate, no, this is how we do it with everyone, just be like, well, I'm not everyone. I'm this, and you were the one who approached me about this. Like I might have submitted it to you, but you're the one who selected it. So I think you should give me fair representation here. So let's talk. You go low, I go high. Scarface stuff. Yeah. I go high, you go low. I know.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, it takes confidence to negotiate like that, but
I'll tell you what, like the fortunate circumstances of a lot of meetings I've had have just literally come from being in the right place, drinking Jack Daniels at the right time, talking to the right person. And then suddenly, I've had conversations with people randomly, and then it comes up like 6 months later and they're like, hey, do you have anything for this? Do you have anything that sounds like this? I'm like, oh, yeah, of course. That's another thing too I'd recommend. This is just like a sneaky pro tip, I'd say, is like, if anyone ever says, do you have this? The answer is always yes. And if you don't have it, make it. And if you can't make it, find it. Because a little bit of something is a lot better than a whole lot of nothing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Always say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that advice. I appreciate those answers, man. I hope that people start looking into that more. I feel like I've heard a little bit more talk about it online and a little bit more knowledge being thrown around, but that could just be because I'm reading How to Make It in the New Music Business, and now Facebook knows that I'm reading that book, so it's showing me ads about sync licensing and stuff like that.
Yeah, and your audience should know that, like, if you're in Canada or America, if you're in Canada, you're going through SOCAN. And if you're in America, you're either going through ASCAP or BMI. And those are your PROs, that's your performing rights organizations. And SOCAN pays out 5 quarters behind. So, I got a check a couple weeks ago for some work that I had done like forever ago. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. And that's kind of how this business is, where it's like, hurry up and wait and then forget and collect. that's the best way I can put that.
5 quarters.
Yeah. 5 quarters behind. Sometimes it's more. I think the first COVID quarter, they had to push back an additional quarter or something like that. So it was like 6 at one point. And we're talking quarters, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know what I'm talking about fiscally, we're talking about 3 months at a time. So 5 times 3, or that's like an 18-month delay, right? So anyway, that's
yeah. That's great advice. I appreciate that, man.
Mm-hmm. Did the math on that work that I just said?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah. 5.
15. What did I say? 18? That would be 6. 6 times 3.
So what do you have going? Like, what are you looking forward to? What are you working towards? I'd love to hear about your projects, not just CHATTERLESS, but anything.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak about that. So, if at this point I haven't bored you enough and you find even slightly any of this personality interesting, I'd like to invite you to check out a new commentary channel I'm doing. It's like a hockey commentary channel called My Stupid Voice, and it's called Unbiased Commentary. So My Stupid Voice is more of the umbrella, and then what I'll be doing is I'm going to be changing over the Intergalactic Interviews YouTube and the website to My Stupid Voice, and then Intergalactic Interviews will be under that in an umbrella, essentially. So that's the first stage. That's the first thing I want to do. The second thing is, as I mentioned, March 26th, I have the album coming out, Nobody from Nowhere with Nothing. And that is all retro wave, synthwave loveliness. And if you're into like a Stranger Things episode on the beach, that's basically what it's like. So if you can get down with that, I think you'll enjoy it. Other than that, though, I've been offered a few gigs here and there. I might be getting back into the podcast world faster than I anticipated after shutting down Intergalactic Interviews 2 years ago. So I might be taking on an assistant director role, maybe not, maybe so, but we'll see how it goes. And I'm just gonna keep playing piano, playing live streams, and just trying to have fun, spread a bit of kindness here and there. That's my idea.
Cool. Do you how long did you do Intergalactic Interviews for? How long was that run?
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, we did 175 episodes. I ended it on a nice round number there.
Yeah.
We only had I think we had a 4-month gap where we were changing locations, and I went through 3 locations. Started in my condo, was then pushed into the bank vault of Amp Records. They actually built a studio in a bank vault. So like you bring guests there and you'd have to open the door. And so that was always cool. Yeah. And then all the way to our principal sponsor, Float House, downtown. Float House has like a beautiful, beautiful studio. And, really shout out to, those Remba brothers. They're the guys that put that together. So they made it possible. And I'm like, a lot of people are like, why would you stop doing the show there? And it's like, my mental health was in such poor condition at the time that every Monday I'd show up to do the show, and finding it in yourself to like be that person suddenly is tough. So going from like, hey, what's up? What's going on? To like, oh shit, ladies and gentlemen, how you doing out there? This is Intergalactic Interviews. I'm like having this like level of energy that maybe takes 3 times the energy to do. That's that was tough. That was tough to do. So I had a bit of an epiphany where I realized I'm like, okay, I can basically half-ass all these things, or I can full-ass, a couple things and do it properly. And that's where CHATTERLESS was born. And then, I can see the fruits of the labor paying out that way. So I'm just slowly adding little pieces back and seeing how much I can do before it's too much. See what my threshold is.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I was doing weekly episodes, which it sounds like you were doing, which I can attest to it being like, that is such a workload.
Yeah.
Were you editing as well and everything, or?
Yeah, I was doing it all. Bill Burr has a great joke about like, you don't want to own a boat. You want to be the friend that shows up with the 6-pack. And it's like, let's go on the boat this weekend. That was like what it was like. So I owned the boat, and it was pretty bad because people show up and be like, I don't see what the big deal is. We talk for an hour and I leave. And I'm like, dude, you have no idea. Like just the promotion aspect of it eats like 5-6 hours a week. And I was at a point where we were recording Mondays. I was editing Tuesdays and hoping to get it out by Wednesday. So every week I'd burn 2 out of 7 days, and I would still be booking like 3 sessions a week, 4 sessions a week with artists to produce them. So I would have like 7 days worth of work in 5 days. And I redlined that from, I don't know, 05 to 2018. And I just got to the point where I was like, okay, the bags under my eyes are just insane. Like they already are, but like it's to another level. And I was like, I have to just stop this. I need to focus on some mental health for a little while and get that straight.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to make that call, right?
Well, I look at a show like this, The Conscious Creative, and think about, being on the ground floor of something cool like this is a real treat for me, because I get to look at the evolution that's going to come with this. Like, this is pretty cool. I'm also in like really good company. I know who was on last week's episode, and so that's pretty cool. And like, he's one of my favorites. I won't say too much about that, but you're a real classy guy. Can I talk about what you sent me? Can I say that?
Do it. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely.
This book right here, Man at Arms by Stephen Pressfield, infamously wrote The War of Art. It was such a life-changing book. I have artists that I've talked to about it that have read it, and they have completely switched their mindset on how they do it. And for those of you listening who haven't read it, a synopsis of it would be getting out of your own way. Like so many creatives will experience not necessarily writer's block, but more like a motivation block. And it's like failure, fear of failure, fear of success, things like that. And like, so it really changes your mindset and helps you get on top of it. So he's also like a fiction writer. And you told me, we booked this a month ahead of time, and you're like, hey, I'm sending you something. And I was like, okay, what is this? Like, I had no idea. When I opened it up though, you had such a nice handwritten letter. Look at this. Handwritten, classy guy. What a good guy. I honestly read that and I was like, wow, it's a signed copy of A Man at Arms, a book. And it's an advanced copy too. It's not even out yet. Oh, I felt very baller. And I'm about halfway through it right now. I'm really enjoying it. But like, I really appreciate that, man. You're a super classy dude for doing that. That I like brought a huge smile on my face. Like I remember I pulled it out of the package and I was like, no way. I just kept saying, no way, no way. Awesome.
Yeah. So cool. I giggled like a little child when I opened the package up from him. And just so cool. It's funny, start a little podcast all of a sudden.
Yeah, I got all knickknacks and stuff back there. I had a boomerang given to me by magician Wes Barker, who's got his own TV show now on True TV. And that's I was thinking about like, random knickknacks and stuff you get over the years. And this is like, signed copy of a book, a little bit different, obviously, but they start to accumulate. You'll get a get a nice t-shirt collection going, I'm sure.
Dope. Just before we wrap this up, man, I just have one question, and I try to ask all my guests this.
Okay.
Is, what impact do you want to leave in the world with your creations and your creativity, or even the way you do business?
Ooh, good question. It's a great question. Well, I'm child-free by design, so I'm not going to have any children. You know, we're fortunate enough to own our condo, so not quite a landowner either. You know, so without land or children, what is your legacy? I think about that. I think about that a lot, and I like it to be this. I like it to be someone who is known as being consistent and good and decent, always through business and always through creative endeavors. I think that that's pretty much what our family tries to do all the time. There's a lot of sharks out there that'll take advantage of that. And, you know, I've been victim of that before, and I've seen that happen. But I'll tell you what, like you eventually learn to navigate the waters. And I'd say, like, I'd love to find someone eventually to pass that on to a little bit. Like I haven't really quite met that person maybe yet, or maybe I have, and they haven't just maybe stepped forward to do it. But I like to maybe pass on some stuff at some point, because I've been producing since, well, this will date me, but like 2003, 2002. So we're talking like, what is it, 2021? So, you know, do the math. Like, yeah, right. So I've been doing it for a minute. I've seen some things come and go, and I'm just humbled by the experience. So I'd like to, you know, just share some of that one day with somebody. That'd be cool.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate your time, Jayme, and the chat. It was really, really dope to talk, man.
Michael, thank you so much for having me on the show.
I hope you enjoyed the interview with Jayme McDonald. I think there's 2 points that I really took from the interview, and they don't necessarily apply to myself, as I don't consider myself a beat maker or a producer, more post-production. But I think that it's really useful advice for producers and beat makers. You know, I think that it's kind of en vogue and it's kind of cool for people to talk shit about knowing music theory these days, or they say that it's too constricting. And I think Jayme really put that theory to bed by saying that theory just gives him a wider stance and has even given him more career opportunities. So I think it's so important to consider that and to think about it. I think honestly that often when people talk about not needing to know what theory is, or saying that theory is constricting, I honestly think it's just an excuse for laziness a lot of the time. And his advice on getting out of the sample game, which is crucial to financial success as a producer or a musician, even as an artist, because it's tough enough to turn a profit in this industry. And if you're paying for samples, you know, cutting your profits in half, you're making life a lot more difficult for yourself than you have to. So this goes back to knowing theory and understanding how music works and understanding how songwriting works. You're better off just getting out of the sample game and learning how to make stuff that sounds like a sample. Other than that, you know, I enjoy these interviews so much. I get so much from each and every one, and I get so much inspiration from them, and I hope that you do as well. And if you want to get more content, follow me on Instagram at Museworks Audio. I post almost every day. I offer mixing advice. I offer inspiring content. I offer marketing and business content as well. So give me a follow. I think I do a pretty good job on there. And take care. Work hard, but not too hard. And love yourself amidst all of it. And thank you for tuning in.